Good day, everyone. This is Science 10, and I will be your teacher, Miss Lavlet Alim. For today's topic, we will have the different types of plate boundaries and the different processes that occur along this plate boundary. So this topic covers your module week 4, 5, and 6. So we have here the objectives. The first one is describe the different types of plate boundaries. So this is with the week 4. And next is explain the different processes that occur along the plate boundaries. And this is for the week 5 and 6. Next, we have here the structure of the Earth. So we have the crust, upper mantle, outer core, and inner core. So plates are made of rigid lithosphere. So why do the plates move? Nganong mulihok man ang plates? So we have here, kindly look on the picture. So we have here, the convection currents are formed by hot magma near the core rising towards the surface, while the cooler magma near the crust sinks, setting up a current that causes the plates to move. These currents are the primary driving force behind the plate movement. So when we look upon the picture or the image, the convection currents here is tended to go up or to rise along the surface, and then the cool magma, which is already on the crust, will move down. So it will be a continuing cycle on which it creates the plates to move. So plates of lithospheres are moved around by the underlying hot mantle convection cells. We have here the three types of plate boundaries. So we have the divergent boundary, convergent boundary, transform fault boundary. The first one is divergent plate boundary, or also it will be called the constructive plate boundary. So it is a linear feature that exists between two tectonic plates that are moving away from each other. So as we can see here in the image, natay makita nga arrow on which they are going to move away from each other, pabuwag, so paglagyo ang iyang padulngan. So that's what happens during the divergent boundary. The plates are moving away to each other. So when the magma reaches the surface, it cools and solidifies to form a new crust of igneous rock. And it would result shallow focus earthquake. So kung naay mahitabo nga divergent plate boundary movement, so the plates moves away to each other, creating it to have ang magma musaka. So as we can see here, there is another forming of new crust of igneous rock. Then what happens is we can experience earthquakes during this movement. So an example of a constructive boundary or divergent plate boundary is the mid-Atlantic ridge. So mao ni siya ang image sa mid-Atlantic ridge. So it moves away, then creating another crust of igneous rock. So we have the features of divergent boundary. So kung on land or continental, it produces rifts which produce rift valleys. Kung sa under the sea na pod is the mid-oceanic ridges. So kung sa land gani mao ni siyang mahitabo, the rift valleys. Kung sa land mahitabo ang divergent boundary, while kung sa under the sea, so it will be called mid-oceanic ridges. Okay, next. Next is the second type, which is the convergent plate boundary. So another term for convergent plate boundary is destructive plate boundary. So for convergent plate boundary, we have a continental-oceanic plate convergence and continental plate convergence, or oceanic plate convergence. So a destructive plate boundary is found where a continental plate meets an oceanic plate. The oceanic plate descends under the continental because it is denser. As the plate descends, it starts to melt due to the friction caused by the movement between the plates. This melted plate is now hot liquid rock or the magma. Then the magma rises through the gaps in the continental plate. If it reaches the surface, the liquid rock forms a volcano. So when we say convergent plate boundaries, mao di po ni reason nga nung makahimo o vulkan. So unsay gigikanan sa paghimo o vulkan. So what we can see here on the picture is the arrows. So ang oceanic plate will descend. So panaog siya because it is denser. So when it descends, so magmelt magmelt ang plate. So, because of the friction, diba? Because sa pagbangga nila. So, what happened is ang nagmelt, it creates a magma on which mangita na siya kalusutan. So, mangita na siya paagi to rise up. That makes it, on the continent itself, sa land mismo, is makahimo siya or makakreate siya of volcano. Next. Okay, the features of continental-oceanic convergence. So, deep sea trench forms and the front of the subduction zone. Magma rises and erupts to form a chain of volcanoes called a continental volcanic arc. The example is the Andes of South America. So, this is the Andes of South America. So, nag-form siya because nag-rise naman ang magma. So, nag-form siya og chain of volcanoes. So, meaning, daghan nga volcano which is called the continental volcanic arc. Continental plate collision. So, what happens naman kung both continents ang mag-collide or magbangga? So, collision boundaries occurs when two plates of similar densities move together. This causes the material between them to buckle and rise up, forming fold mountains. So, kung magbangga na sila, mag-collide ang duha ka plates or continental plate. So, it creates a folded mountains. Diba? So, the example is the Himalayas, on which is a chain of fold mountains mo siya gipilo-pilo. Diba? Kung magbangga, so mag-create siya of, unlike dito sa continental oceanic, nga ang oceanic is mo go down because it is denser. For this one is it creates a folded mountains, which is because of the collision. So, they have been formed by the African plate colliding into the Eurasian plate. So, we have here, this is the Himalayas. So, na-create siya, the fold mountains, or a chain of fold mountains, because of the collision between the African plate and the Eurasian plate. Next. Continent convergence. So, it creates especially large mountain or mountain ranges. So, example is the Himalayas, or the chain of fold mountains. Next, we have the oceanic convergence. So, two oceanic slabs converge and one descends beneath the other. This kind of boundary often form volcanoes on the oceanic floor. So, sa oceanic convergence is duha na pod ka oceanic slabs. So, pareho nga oceanics na on which ang usa mo go under. And then, it will create a volcanoes on the ocean floor. So, mao po na reason nga nung na mga vulkan ilawom sa tubig or ilawom sa dagat. So, volcanic island arcs form as volcanoes emerge from the sea. Examples included is the Aleutian, Mariana, and Tonga Islands. So, we have here this one. So, beneath these islands, na siya volcano because of the collisions between the oceanic slabs. Okay. So, we have here the third type, which is the transform plate boundaries or the conservative plate boundaries. So, conservative plate boundaries exist where two plates do not directly collide but slide past each other along a fault. So, as we can see on the image, dili na siya magbangga. Dili na ingon nga na ay magpaubos, na apoy musaka, or na ay mahimong fold nga mountains, but it will slide. So, no volcanoes are found along these plate boundaries, but earthquakes do occur. So, walay mahimo nga volcano because mag-slide raman siya, walay ma-pressure na mahitabo, pero na ay earthquake na mahitabo because of the sliding of plates. So, an example of such a boundary is the San Andreas Fault in California. So, this is the San Andreas Fault in California. So, San Andreas Fault is also being connected with the movie, which is titled San Andreas also, diba? So, I will show later a clip or some scenes of the San Andreas movie. So, you can see there na wala siya collision, but there is a sliding of plates that will happen. Okay, so the major processes related to plate tectonics. So, we have here the earthquakes, volcanism, and mountain building. So, for divergent boundary, makakreate siya of earthquakes. And then, for convergent boundary, we have the creation of volcano. So, natay volcanism, and the creation also for mountain building. Napon siya mo form. So, mo na siya sa convergent. So, applicable ang duha ka buok. While, sa transform fault boundary is, dili siya makakreate og mountain, dili po siya makakreate og volcano, but it also have the earthquakes. So we have here the divergence of plates. So kung sa oceanic plate gani, automatically, ang tawag sa iyang ma-form is mid-oceanic ridge. And then kung sa continental plate is, it will be called reef valleys. And then kung mo-accumulate siya sa water or sa ocean, it will be called the linear sea. Next, sa convergence, it will have between oceanic plate, continental plate to oceanic plate, and continental to continental plate. Kung oceanic plate to another oceanic plate gani, it will create trenches and volcanic island arc. While kung continental plate to oceanic plate, it leads to formation of trenches and continental volcanic arc. Kung continental to continental, it will create mountains. Then for transform fault boundary, which is also known as conservative fault boundary, which occurs either in the seafloor or inland. So kung sa seafloor gani or sa ocean mahitabo ang sliding sa mga plates, it will be having the fracture zones. While kung sa continent, it will leads to formation of faults. Diba? Natay gitawag, especially for example diri sa Pilipinas, we have there the big one. So what would be possible that will happen kung big one will occur into us? Because earthquakes dili man nato matagna, unlike sa typhoon or sa storm on which we will know, diba, kung asa siya padong. Unlike earthquakes, we won't be able to know kanus siya mahitabo. We can't predict kung kanus mahitabo ang collision among the plates. So we have here the world plates. It will also given the image also can be seen on your other modules or your previous module. So we have here the different plates. So because of earthquakes or some volcanic activity and mountain building, these plates become different as of now. So sa una, as we can see, is halos tupad ra sila tanan, or the theory of Pangaea. But because of some earthquakes and another natural phenomenon, it creates into continents. Motong nagkabuwag-buwag na. Okay, next. So for the world plates, we have the Australian plate, Caribbean plate, Cocos plate, Eurasian plate, Indian plate, Juan de Fuca plate, Nazca plate, North American plate, Pacific plate, Philippine plate, Scotia plate, and South American plate. So mo na siyang mag-consist sa atong world plates. So that's it for the lesson from week 4 to 6. So thank you. Hope you have learned something, or hope you have understand most of the topics. Then keep safe everyone.